We're going to probably zig and zag a little bit today because we're a pretty strong team down here and we like a fair bit more teamwork to be evident, I suppose. So I'm going to just share the screen and talk through a little bit of a PowerPoint. I'll try not to bore you to tears, but I certainly can't make any announcements around 1.6 billion. So bear with us as we get going. But I guess first up, we'd like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional custodians of the land, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging down this way. Just a little bit about our school. And please feel free to jump onto our website after today's session and go through and take as many resources that Andy's published on there. I think Parents Victoria, you've snaffled a couple and linked them via your website as well. So if you're looking for some more ideas about the how, Andy's got a plethora of them on there. So who are we? We're 603 students this year. We've got about 143 students identified through the National Consistent Collection of Data that requires some form of adjustment. We've probably got about 8 students on the old PSD, Program for Students with Disabilities profile, and we've got about 12 students under the new disability inclusion work that's happening. We're trying to wait and get in that queue for the DIPs, the profile meetings. We've got over 40 amazing staff. As a principal, sometimes you inherit some good things and some other challenges as well, and we've got some wonderful people, but they also have great relationships and have babies. So we've got a lot of part-timers, which is great. I think we've had 15 kids born in my 3 years as principal here. And look, more importantly, we've got 406 great families that are associated with our school. We're about 800 metres from Ocean Grove Main Beach, so a wonderful holiday destination. And I also get to drive along 13th Beach from Torquay twice a day. So life's pretty tough down here. And I know John enjoys the drive from Anglesey coming across as well. As mentioned before, we're on Wadawurrung country, and you'll see our house logos down the bottom. When I first started here, our year 6s, someone mentioned before about student voice and agency. I had a couple of house captains that came to us and they were mortified at what some of the old explorers had done to our Indigenous populations around this part of the world. So we set about changing our houses over to Wadawurrung names. So Barnheap means sharks, Barnacareek means spiders, Conmoit means snakes, and Loch Loch means eagles. So if you've learnt nothing today, there's 4 words from Wadawurrung language. Our school's about 131 years old. We've got some strong academic results that I'll share with you in a minute. We've got a social and emotional learning focus with RBE complementing the work. And as I was listening to the Minister just before, and I think talking with Parents Victoria, when you look at what John's talking about in the RBE, I think it fits in just if it's like a triangle, if you visualise a triangle. For me, RBE sits at the top and you've got respectful relations and school-wide positive behaviour sort of sitting out to the side. And I don't know if those 2 programs have delved deep enough into the relational side of things. So I reckon this RBE stuff, if we can do this really well, it's going to help those other 2 projects very, very nicely. I want to acknowledge our amazing P&F. When Parents Vic popped down the other day, they got to meet Georgia, our wonderful president, who was exhausted after organising 170 of our community at our local trivia night Friday week ago. So, we talk about that community engagement, re-engaging the community after COVID. Well, our community are certainly re-engaged. We've also retrained over, I think it's 120 parent helpers for the classroom as well. So I've got an active community and a wonderful parents and friends, but I've also got an outstanding school council. And the Minister mentioned before about some of the things that might get in the way of, creating these links. And I'd encourage the Minister to maybe have a look at some of the policies that we've got to work through as principals and school counsellors that can, time poor parents that are outside of school have to work through when they volunteer to get a trivia night up and running, or a Mother's Day function at the local surf club. All those challenges that we face with policy, it also flows onto those volunteers and the re-engagement. Mentioned before about strong academic results, and you may have seen in the media just how poorly our state's done across NAPLAN this year, and we blame COVID for whatever reason, blah, blah, blah. But I guess I stand here today really proud as the principal and very reflective of how we navigated, negotiated, stuck thick as a group of staff. We put the foot down when we needed to. We pulled back when we needed to. We looked after staff mental health and wellbeing. We tried our best, to look after the kids and the families, and it probably came at a bit of a toll to a lot of us, but we've done it and we've come out the other end. And, a lot of us in education, we haven't had a rest. We haven't had a lot of time at home. Most of us were here day in, day out for those kids that were on site. But overall, you can see that our year threes have, performed really strongly against a lot of the other state markers. And our year fives, pretty well as well. I try not to bore you with the data. But I guess one of the things that I've been really proud about here at Ocean Grove has been our attitude to school data this year. And I've only picked out two areas, one around the individual social and emotional wellbeing, and the other one around social engagement. And column one was last year's 2021 results. Column two is this year's. This is the increase. This is as a percentage. Oh, sorry, another percentage over here. When you have a look at the life satisfaction, that's pretty good, but it's the resilience. And someone mentioned resilience before. I wrote it down. I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. But when we're talking about resilience, the thing that I'm really proud about is that we've moved kids from low resilience into medium and medium into high. So that's going to be an indicator for us as we move through some more work that Andy will talk about as we track and do what we do. So we're clearly on the right track. The negative percentage is actually good. So I don't see that as a negative. But this one here, the move from only having 8 kids up to 28, 250% improvement. And obviously there's some other great results there around the social engagement. A lot of principals that I talked to also mentioned how, their grade 3 kids are probably like kids at the end of grade 1 in terms of the social side of things, and we find that here as well. So as teachers, we've got to understand our kids a little bit better, because while they might be 9 and 10-year-old kids in a grade 3 or grade 4 classroom, they're actually operating at a 7 and an 8-year-old maturity level. So just something to consider there. So I wrote this one down, why RBE? And I'm going to answer it from my perspective because it is Andy's baby and he's developed that great relationship with John. But we've got this quote up in the staff room. Students don't care what you know until they know you care. And it's pretty simple, pretty simple. So for me, this quote resonated with me. I was a PE teacher back at Kew Primary in Melbourne as a 22-year-old young fella. And there was a teacher by the name of Patricia Incherti, and she had that rough bunch of grade 3 kids year in, year out. And as a PE teacher, as a specialist, running through 25 grades at the time, I'd always take a big deep breath before 3 PI came down the stairs and raced out the classroom. But by the end of term 1, they were the best kids in the school, and I couldn't wait to have them for PE. They were amazing. And I guess the older I get, the more reflecting that you do. And I've probably identified why. And I look back and, Patricia was a teacher that I never saw much of during term 1 in the staff room, particularly at recess. She'd sneak down right at the end of recess, grab a coffee and gone. Lunchtime, she might come down to heat her lunch and then she'd be gone. You'd hardly see her during term 1. But then terms 2, 3 and 4, she was the first in and last out of the staff room, where other teachers were in and out of the staff room all the time complaining about their kids. What Patricia was doing was spending that time and developing those relationships with the kids in year 3, moulding them into a team under her watch that just made it so enjoyable to teach. And so the staff here, they almost feel like they know Patricia Incherti because they tell that story repeatedly. So if any principals or teachers out there, relationships, they are key. Put the time in, it will help down the track. Oh, sorry, Andy. Just before I do hand over to Andy in a minute, a couple of other things I wrote down about why. The model that John presents, this framework, it's enabled me to extend my thinking. As a classroom teacher, my classroom ran on 2 words, and that was trust and choice. And I would trust my students to make the right choices. Pretty simple, but I guess what John's done, he's actually encapsulated some other things that I probably did inadvertently, but I wasn't clear about as a young dude back in the classroom in the day. But what I've realised over the engagement with John and with the work that Andy's done is that what is being presented is genuine and it's human. It's really relatable. It's real. And I guess Andy will probably talk more a little about some of these things, little cards that we'll show in a minute or two. But I've been able to actually, as the principal now, I use the trust, forgiveness, integrity, hope, compassion as a little framework for me to have some pretty tricky conversations with kids at times. Not about all 5 elements, but certain elements where kids just need a bit of a reminder or to work through. And I reckon as we move forward, this will give us that common language that we'll be able to work together with the staff and the students. And I guess the other thing about the why for me is after meeting John and you sit down and talk to him, he's just got the most captivating voice. He came in and I said to in one of our first conversations, John, I know you're going to have all the research, the evidence, all that sort of stuff in the background. When you come and work with our staff, it's the how. We want to know the how so that we can go and do it. The research and your articles and stuff are fantastic. But at the end of the day, staff need to know how. And that's what we're going to go into a little bit more. So as I said before, jump onto our website, jump onto the newsletter section, copy, paste, put your own name on there. Maybe shoot Andy a little thank you if you can, if you're going to use some of his resources. But I'll hand over to Andy now. There'll probably be a little shameless self-promotion from Andy that he's not authorised by my good self, but you'll know it when you see it. So I'm going to hand over to Andy.
I don't know what you're talking about, Scott, but thanks for the introduction. Could you mind sharing to the other things we've got? So while Scott's just getting Google Docs ready with a couple of things to share, I'll start with where our school was at. So quite a few years ago, we developed our social and emotional learning wheel, which we call our SEL wheel. It's a framework for teaching social and emotional learning. It's based around Castle's 5 core competencies. We also had the 7 Cs running at our school, and we worked with the Resilience Project, and their focus on gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. And as a staff, we looked at some other things. We included respect, growth mindset, and resilience. So that is our framework, and that's all the things that we do in our school. We've been doing for quite a while. And it's around the school, so parents have a visual about what is happening around their school in social and emotional learning. And we promote it with the kids through awards. And we also have, as you saw before, little cards that look like this. And on the back of them, we might write little notes on them for different people. Like I might give Scott a card like that, and I'll just write in the back, hey, thanks for all your support. And we give these to people, staff, there you go, Scott. We give it to kids, we give it to visitors, and it really promotes what we're doing. And we started to think about, when we had John working with us, how are we going to incorporate this with relationship-based education? So I first came across John Hendry through a podcast from Generation Next that's through Andrew Fuller. And I'm always looking for things on relationships. We know how much research is out there about relationships and how important they are. And I listened to a podcast that Andrew Fuller had with John, and it just rung so true to me about where we were at with our school. We're doing such a great job with our social emotional learning and our academics. Where to next? So I actually made contact with John, and he did a Zoom with our staff, one staff meeting, and all the staff were saying, this is great. This is the next step for us, relationship-based education. So we engaged John this year, and he worked with all staff for a whole curriculum day. We had a parent session. we had John and I worked with all the kids from each cohort, and we had another staff session. And that really started to get our journey of relationship-based education on the way. And my staff were saying, this is fantastic. And as Scott said, what do we do? How do we do this? So we started to work with my social emotional learning team, our AIP team, to develop a framework that's going to help embed relationship-based education. So we made a scope and sequence, and this is what we've done, and we're trialling that for 6 months. So if you look, you can see the first 2 weeks of every term is compassion. Then we're looking at trust for the next 2, then integrity, then hope and forgiveness. That way, 4 times a year, every kid gets some work, coaching, help on compassion. And all, if you look up there below the compassion trust, there are all the links to our social emotional learning. So I thought, how can we do this? Our team developed this so teachers can get quality lessons that are linked and integrated to other areas of the curriculum, into literacy, numeracy, into visual arts. And if you can see there for compassion, there's a whole lot of ideas that teachers can use in the classroom. And they might go, right, that first idea, no, not for my kids. Write a letter or card to a family friend. Yeah, we'll do that. And you can see that one there is relatable to all year levels. Complete a random act of kindness, and so forth. Teachers can use these simple ideas in their classroom, starting with an SEL lesson, but also starting to integrate it into their maths, literacy, arts, etc. It's also, we have a whole lot of links to read aloud books that are connected. Those ones are books that are connected to compassion, and the links for RRR. So it's all integrated so teachers can do that simply in their classroom. We also have a class called Peer Connect, which is where one teacher sees kids for through their whole time through school. So they'll start in prep with a teacher, and they'll be with that teacher in grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that teacher will teach multi-aged kids for a 1-hour session a week, which is social emotional learning. And they really form strong relationships with that group of kids so they can help each other in the yard and build those quality relationships with the kids in the yard. So that's sort of how we've sort of integrated that into the classroom. The next thing I'm going to show you is some cards that we have. And I've shown you one of those cards. So I or Scott or other teachers will have one of these cards, and we just give them around to a whole lot of people. So, for example, one recess, I got a whole stack of these cards of kindness, and I just went out to the yard and gave 20 or 30 of these kids to kids at recess. So we're talking about kindness in the school. We're talking about kindness, and this one's for you, Gail. Gail came down on Friday and she bought me a coffee. So thanks so much, Gail. That's for you. Thank you. And we hand these around. Things like this, we look at that. We're talking about relationships, and I'll give this one to you, John. Well done, 5 years. So we hand these to the kids that really start reminding them about kindness. We remind them about relationships. And as Scott was saying, if the kids are having some troubles in the yard, we might just get one of those cards and say, well, what's going on with your friends? What is it with your friend? Let's see what's missing. What do we need to help you to do to build that relationship back up to where it was? So we can use those cards to remind them about that. The other thing I do with the year 3 kids, in our year 3s at the moment, they're having a few tricky times with friendships. So I have developed a simple, fantastic friendship lesson, 6 lessons on what it is to be a good friend. So the week 1, for example, we look at compassion and introducing it. And there's a whole lot of simple ideas that I do with the kids. Then the next week I go back and we do trust and so forth. And they are really simple ideas that I can do, or I can give to another teacher to do if they feel, if I'm not there, or they say, actually, I'd like to do this instead. So it's another simple way of embedding RBE into the classroom. So everything that we do, that I do, it needs to be simple. And here's my self-promotion that Scott was just, he wanted me to do.
Unauthorised, Gail, I'm trying to stop him.
Where did this come from? The simplicity for me, I actually wrote a book called Connecting with Your Kids. Now, it's a book to help parents build relationships at home with their kids. And it has 48 executive skills to learn. And the ideas in the book are really simple. You can just do one of these activities with your kids each week. That is really easy, and you don't need much equipment. There's no money involved. So it needs to be simple. I've read a lot of really, really good parenting books. And at the end, I thought, what do I do now? The idea of this book is, like with RBE in the classroom, it's just simple and anyone can do it at any time with little resources. That's the premise of the work that I'm doing with RBE, to make it simple and easy. So John has done such a great job helping us get the journey going. And now our bit now is to, what do we do next to help teachers? So that's where we're at in the classroom. Scott, did you want to talk about the newsletter? That's it from me about our journey on RBE and how we have implemented in the classroom. And Scott just wanted to talk a little bit about our newsletters.
Yeah, I just thought I'd just quickly show you the website. Feel free to jump on, have a look through, go to the parent info section. There's Andy on his bike at our school cross country. Tough life down here on the coast. If you jump into the parent info section, go down to the newsletters. All our newsletters are on there. We've done 31 or 32 of them so far this year. Andy does a weekly piece. So feel free to jump in, go back through our older stuff as well. And as I said, Parents Victoria have used a couple of our resources on their sites as well. So we think we're on the right track. We want to acknowledge the work that John's done. Parents Victoria are certainly on the right track. And we look forward to, I guess, a bigger and broader relationship to see where they can support us to do this better. And then, maybe spread it across our network and then see what happens from there.
And Scott and Andy, that was terrific. And could we just, you've got Alex, the parent, couldn't join today, but we've got a video. So we'll get Alan to play that now, team.
Right. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name's Alex Fisher. I'm a parent of 3 young children at the Ocean Grove Primary School. I just thought I'd leave a quick video to share some of my experience from as a parent that recently attending a session held by the school, which was a anxiety and resilience workshop where John Hendry presented at that particular session. And I personally, as a parent, was really kind of moved by the session. And it really did hit home. And for me, when I went away from that session, I kind of the penny dropped to a certain degree on the really importance of between the relationship between the school, the child, and then the parent, and how that relationship's really critical to the development of the children. And for me, the key piece for me was really around the resilience piece. And we all of us experience anxiety. We all go through it in different phases throughout our life. And I know that all the parents listening to this and other parents out there who send their kids off to school each day, they all, we all hope and wish that kids can go through failure and bounce back and build resilience, and that failure is okay. And I really thought that the way that John spoke through that, discussed about the way that you sort of navigate that and teaching kids that that's okay, and building resilience is, it's critical to not just in the schooling life, but personal life, family life, relationship with friends. It was really well presented. It was succinct. And I know that as a parent, I took that away and thought it was a really great session. So I think that relationship-based education is a really big tick for me, and I think the school's heading in the right direction. And if there's any other schools out there that are thinking about rolling that program out, I'd be a big supporter of that. So yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Scott and Andy. And now we'll throw to Paran High School, but thank you again, and much appreciate everything you've shared this morning.